Is another recession looming? Next. And welcome to the Stan Simpson Show, a program about Connecticut people and compelling issues. Make it a point to drop in every week. Is another recession looming? The debt crisis and lowered credit rating in America have some feeling that we're in for round two of a recession. Economist Dr. Fred McKinney stops in for a chat, and he has a provocative perspective on all this. He says the government should raise taxes, not lower it, and that small and minority businesses would greatly benefit if they did. He'll explain. Then we'll wrap things up with a local evangelist who is pitching the power of prayer for dealing with your painful past. But first, America is feeling the pain, and here with Dr. Fred McKinney, our economist and head of the Connecticut Minority Business folks, and you represent them very well. You say, as an economist, looking at the debt crisis, looking at the fiscal dilemma, you say the answer is to raise taxes, not lower it. You got to explain. And keep it simple. I'm not an economist, so keep it simple for me.
Well, it's not just raising taxes. It's whose taxes should be raised. And what's happened over a period of, say, 50 years, and I think you have to look at the economy in long periods of time to kind of understand where we are today. But in 1961, the tax rate on people who made $200,000 a year was 89%. And for people who made $50,000 a year, the tax rate was 50%.
They were taxed at that rate.
That was their marginal tax rate. Mm-hmm. And so now, of course, you've got inflation to take into consideration. But today, the tax rates for those folks in that $200,000 bracket is about 28%. And again, it's not taking into account effective rates.
Right. But what's wrong with keeping money in their pocket, Dr. Fred? They work hard for that money. Middle-class folks are well-to-do. Why not keep it in their pocket?
Well, the problem is the concentration of income and wealth, in my view. And we know as economists that it's okay to make money. It's okay to have wealthy people in society. But the problem is when incomes get too concentrated, it has a dampening effect on consumption. And what you see in this country right now, the problem is not with the rich. The rich are doing fine. Mm-hmm. In fact, the rich and the wealthy have done very well over this last 50 years, and over the last 10 years they've done very well.
But you're saying they're not paying their fair share in taxes, what you're saying.
They're not paying their fair share in taxes, but more importantly than this issue of fairness, it really is an issue of how the economy works and doesn't work. And so I'm less concerned, quite frankly, about fairness. I'm more concerned about the health of the economy. And the fact of the matter is, having a distribution of income and wealth that we have right now is not only not good for the economy, it's not good for wealthy people.
Because too much money is in the hands of too small a percentage of people.
Yeah. Well, what do they do with it?
There's an interesting stat that you had an article in the Harvard Business Journal where you mentioned the breakdown, the percentage of salary increases for the past, I think it was 10 years.
Right.
And I want to talk about that because it was pretty striking to me. Of course, I can't find that here, but we have it here. For the very well-to-do, top percentile, 492% was the increase in their salary from 1987 to 08. Thank you. And then top 1%, 323. Top 5%, 68. For the average income earner, 25%. So your point is that the average income earner from 67 to 2008 only increased 25%, while the rich were over 300 and 400%. That's your point right there.
That's correct. Right? That's right. And so what happens is those, it's good that the wealthy again and the high-income individuals are making money. That's good. But most people are not in the top, by definition, are not in the 1% of the income distribution. And so when income is not well distributed and there's no growth, that's why we're seeing this problem in housing. People can't afford the mortgages that they have. Their incomes haven't grown.
But the rich say, listen, you're taxing the folks who are successful. You're penalizing the rich folks for their creativity, and the folks who create jobs. It's just patently unfair to tax us when we're creating these jobs out here.
But what's happened? What's happened? If that were true, we should have more jobs today at a tax rate on the rich at 28% than we did at 89%. But if you look at the history of the economy, the economy functions better when the federal government is in a much better fiscal position. Right now, we've got fiscal policy at the federal level that has in effect starved the federal government.
You have a country now trillions of dollars, plural, in debt, right? This issue now with the credit rating has caused great embarrassment for the president, for the country, fallout across the world. All the international markets are reacting to America's credit rating being dropped. They have in Japan and all over the world. I mean, how bad is that, and is it salvageable? I mean, you're trillions of dollars in debt.
Right.
How bad a moment was this for the U.S. to have this happen?
Well, it's an embarrassment, first of all, that the federal government was in the position that it was in, fighting over something that is really as mundane as the debt limit. That is something that is almost an administrative action. It should never have gotten to the point that it did. It got to that point for political reasons, but the fact of the matter is we were there because we have a tax policy that doesn't make any sense.
Well, someone would say you have a tax policy and a war policy. I mean, it seems to me from reading, and you're the economist, that the two things that cause this debt, and from reading some of your thoughts, one, not taxing the rich enough, but also the military spending has been extraordinary.
Right.
So is it too simplistic to say that if you reduce military spending and increase taxes on the well-to-do, that you could find a formula then to bring this debt down in a more expedited fashion?
Whether you like it or not, that ultimately is what's going to be done. We're not going to be, hopefully, in Afghanistan and Iraq forever. When we come out, when we pull out, there'll be more resources to go to other areas of federal spending. But it also will take some of the financial pressure off the federal government. I mean, the growth in the federal debt has been exponential. I mean, we're at, close to $15 trillion now.
Some say it's unsolvable. Some say that's a debt you simply can't pay off.
Right. Well, we unfortunately have been spending like a drunken sailor, and we have not been responsible when it comes to areas of taxing. I mean, if you go back and if you get and look at history, if people remember, and they may not remember because they may not be old enough, but during the Second World War, people paid for that war. You ask your mothers, you ask your fathers, you ask your grandparents, and they'll talk about war bonds where people sacrificed. They'll talk about, rationing of sugar, rationing of tires. You couldn't buy a car. Here we are trying to have a war, do all this other stuff, and not pay for it.
Here was the president's comment on this rating issue, the dropping in rating and what it means, and here was his spin on this crisis, the president.
No matter what some agency may say, we've always been and always will be a AAA country. For all of the challenges we face, we continue to have the best universities, some of the most productive workers, the most innovative companies, the most adventurous entrepreneurs on earth.
That's called spin doctoring a little bit, right? The bottom line is, on his legacy, this hurts from a historical standpoint. He knows it's on his watch.
Right.
Although I'm hearing now that they predicted the interest rates would skyrocket, and now they're saying that they're going to actually lower the rates some more, so the damage may not be as bad. In 15 seconds, we'll continue on in the second segment. What happens now? Can you get that rating back up to AAA in 6 months, or is this a 10-year, 15-year deal?
I think the rating agency, in this case S&P, not all the rating agencies downgraded U.S. debt, but I think the rating agencies are prepared to change their rating on the United States if Congress and the President act responsibly with regards to the deficit and the debt. The rating agencies are saying to Congress,
get your act together.
Get your act together.
All right, let's hold that thought. Back with more of Dr. Fred McKinney, our economist. We'll talk more about the steps to stimulate the economy and create jobs. You are watching The Stan Simpson Show. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, too.